Congressman Hoekstra, one of the problems here is the fact that the president came into office with a diplomatic strategy, what some people call the grand bargain, the idea that he would take regime change off the table in the hopes that Iran would then agree to change its behavior on terrorism, on nuclear weapons. How much is that diplomatic strategy dead because of the events that we've seen over the course of the last week? If the Ayatollah Khamenei and President Ahmadinejad prevail, should the U.S. continue, can the U.S. continue to try to engage them diplomatically?
Well, what the president is doing, I think he's stubbornly holding on to this belief that negotiations with the current regime is the best way forward. I really think, and I do agree with Senator Bayh here, that a combination of speaking out forcefully and at the same time maybe moving forward with sanctions will bring about the kind of change and will let us take advantage, or will let the Iranian people, this is about the Iranian people, let the Iranian people take advantage of this opportunity that is in front of them. As to whether speaking out forcefully undercuts the voices of freedom and the voices of protest in Iran, I don't buy that for a minute. Us speaking out forcefully on their behalf, the regime is going to accuse us of meddling whether we do or whether we do not say anything. But if we're going to do something, we should speak out.
Now, let's look backwards a little bit. President Obama came under heavy criticism all this week for his cautious statements, and I want to play a clip of perhaps his most controversial statement. Here it is.
The difference between Ahmadinejad and Mousavi in terms of their actual policies may not be as great as has been advertised.
Mr. Sajapur, first of all, is that true? The president went on to say, either way, we're going to be dealing with a regime that's hostile to the U.S. Do you believe that there is no great difference between what we would face with Mousavi as compared to what we have and would continue to face with Ahmadinejad? And how dispiriting was that statement to the protesters in the street?
Well, Chris, I do believe that was a misstep by the president, and I think the White House acknowledges now in retrospect that was a misstep, and if you've noticed, the rhetoric has changed. But I didn't get the impression that this had made a tremendous impact on the demonstrations in Tehran and elsewhere.
Steve, excuse me, as we saw the violence in the street on Saturday, and those pictures were so striking of people defying the will of the, excuse me, of the supreme leader and risking their lives, the contrast to the carefully calibrated statements coming out of the White House was pretty striking.
It was. I mean, I think it's good that the president finally, after a week, said something. That was an improvement. But I wish that he would go back and read his own Berlin speech from just about a year ago, where he talked about a dawn of a new Middle East. He talked about the need to support Lebanese in the streets who are bleeding and fighting for democracy. I mean, these are his own words. So I think one of the things he could do right now, if he doesn't want to make the United States an issue, fine, don't make the United States an issue. We've been told for 6 months now that he is the new leader of the world. He could go and put together a coalition, a broad, strong international coalition, come up with a strong statement of condemnation of the violence, a call for free press, a threat to not recognize the illegitimate government of Iran if these kinds of crackdowns continue. These are things that he can do that would not mean the United States is meddling. It would be a broad coalition, perhaps even including people from the region.
How could that not be? How could that not be meddling? I mean, George Bush called them part of the axis of evil, condemned them. I don't see that he got any farther. It's not that President Obama has a different
There's a huge difference between what I'm talking about, a broad international coalition with our European partners who have been much stronger on this than President Obama has, and calling them the axis of evil.
With the U.S. taking the lead, the U.S. then gets positioned as, the demon, the great Satan, which is what they've been calling us for our past history of involvement in Iran. We don't want it that position.
The problem was it took him a very long time to even acknowledge that it was the government that was doing the killing and the beating, and he only did that yesterday. But I did speak to a lot of experts yesterday, before and after the president's statement, saying, well, what would you like to hear him say? After his statement, in which he did blame the government for the killing, it was basically a matter of tone. Well, we'd like for these words to come out of his own mouth. We'd like him to do it in a very prominent way. But now it seems that he has said what most people were wanting him to say all week.